This thought leads to another criticism of Camus, that his position is too absolute. And I think it's sort of typical of French intellectuals to make large, abstract pronouncements. He is saying, in effect, either life has meaning or it doesn't. It is not that either-or position. It's not a toggle switch. Camus lived much closer to the age when most people in the West assumed there was a God and that God was the source of all meaning. Today, we are much closer to a societal assumption that we have to make it up as we go along. As we experience it, some of our hours, days, and years are filled with meaning and purpose, and some aren't. We had a deep conversation here at the Fleck Room the other day about the transition that many of you have made from career to retirement. Many of the structures of meaning that kept you going from day to day suddenly dropped away, and you had to reinvent yourselves. But it wasn't the end of the world, and I doubt if many of you flirted with suicide over it. Many of us, I suspect, will flirt with ideas of hastening our end due to illness and disability and considerations of the quality of life, but that has nothing to do with the collapse of meaning. Many of you of a theistic bent will believe with Kierkegaard that God is a transcendent and absolute source of meaning, but one which requires a leap of faith. The atheistic among us will reject the transcendent source of meaning. Now, I count myself as a religious naturalist. Religious naturalists look for meaning within the world as portrayed by science, and particularly the theory of evolution. In my own thinking, as you know, I'm always trying to relate traditional religious concepts such as love, evil, soul, redemption, to what we know about the evolution of life and the human brain. I do not see the world as meaningless. I see it as having an order which we can discover, but that order is often not the order given by our traditional categories of thought. We need to pay attention to the evidence, as a good scientist does, and treat all of our categories as hypotheses. And yet, for all these critiques, there is something appealing about the figure of Sisyphus. And there are days when this image seems to fit what we do in the world, and particularly what we do in this congregation and in this movement. We are a movement, after all, based, as was already said here today, on the universalist side, on a God who is all-powerful, absolutely deterministic, and all-loving. We are guided by an ethic of love, which is enshrined in our principles, despite the fact that probably a majority of us do not believe in any sort of God anymore. Now, if that ain't absurd, I don't know what is. And I can understand how the myth of Sisyphus appeals to someone who had the misfortune to have to guide our entire movement for a few years. Sisyphus is not for sissies, folks. It is not easy to embrace absurdity or meaninglessness. Now, we get back to the Buddha. The Buddha's first noble truth is that dukkha, which is usually translated as suffering, is a pervasive part of the human condition. But suffering is easier to endure if it has an endpoint and a meaning or purpose. 10 days ago, someone I like a lot hurt me as bad as I've ever been hurt in years. And I paid him for the privilege. I don't hate him. I thank him and will go back to see him again the next time I need periodontal surgery. The pain I've been going through since that surgery is endurable because it will soon be over and because it has a larger meaning. I'm trying to save a molar, which has been giving me some problems. I contrast this with the pain that many of you have learned to live with on a daily basis that simply can't be cured. Camus was right that there is heroism involved in living a life whose only meaning is what you make of it. But he does not just say that Sisyphus is heroic. And this is very important. He does not just say that Sisyphus is heroic or admirable. He says that he is happy. To embrace the absurd, to know that this is all there is, to know that we will be pushing this rock up the hill forever, can lead to happiness. I will leave you here with Camus' conclusion. Quote, I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burden again, but Sisyphus teaches the higher fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes that all is well, along with Oedipus, along with St. Teresa. This universe, henceforth without a master, seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a world. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus